Hey, welcome to a bit of a different video. I've been kind of wanting to play around with some things on the channel, get various things going, and I thought what better way to do that than making a tier list. People love tier lists. They can cause all kinds of strife. Me personally, I like to see them as just sort of quick little ways to give your opinions on a whole bunch of stuff, and I figure what better way to do that for this particular thing than with Mega Man. If you've been following my channel for a very, very long time, then you will know I quite like me some Mega Man, and my old Mega Man reviews aren't great for a multitude of reasons, and I'm not really in the game of re-reviewing every last single one of them, so I feel like it'd be much easier just to do this, and make a little tier list for it. So as you can see, the list here contains basically every Mega Man game here, but I'm really only going to be ranking the numbered classic games, and to clarify that even further, because the Game Boy games exist, the console ones, because the Game Boy ones are largely just watered down ports of the console ones anyway, and I haven't really played much of Mega Man 5 on Game Boy, so there you go. To begin with, the original Mega Man I feel like gets a lot of flack for being pretty rough around the edges, which, to be fair, it is super rough, but it's the first game in the franchise, and they're still largely figuring out what they wanted to do with it. It's got some really bullshit hard moments, I will give you that. And no, the Bit in Gutsman stage really isn't one of them. Those platforms aren't that big of a deal when you really know the timing and when they're about to, flip down. But first time they can be very hard. But you've got like the magnet beam section in Wily's castle, where if you do not have weapon energy you can't progress, or if you didn't get magnet beam because you didn't think it would be necessary. There's the Bit and Iceman stage with the reappearing, disappearing blocks immediately followed by those annoying platforms that float around and shoot at you that I always just use the magnet beam to get past because that section is so annoying. There is a lot of jank in the original Mega Man. It's not an amazing game, but I've always kind of had a soft spot for it. I quite enjoy it for all of, even with all of its issues. It's not an A-tier game, I don't think. A couple of years ago, I probably would have put it in A-tier because I used to like it even more. I'm not quite as huge on it right now. I think for right now, we'll put it in C tier, and maybe we'll end up rearranging that a little bit later, but right now C tier feels about right for Mega Man 1. Mega Man 2 is the game that everybody loves. Everybody loves Mega Man 2. It is the one that gets all of the attention, and for the longest time, I really hated Mega Man 2. For a very, very long time, Mega Man 2 was among my least favorite Mega Man games, and when I decided to make this video, I was actually fully ready to reinstate that, to talk about how much I don't like Mega Man 2. But in preparation, I did, play through all 11 classic Mega Man games again, or at least played a large majority of them again. And I kind of liked Mega Man 2 more this time. I think it's still very clear that it was kind of slapped together in developers' free time. It's a little more polished than Mega Man 1, but it's still got some weird bits in it. The reappearing, disappearing blocks in Heatman's stage are completely insane. I have never done those without without item 2, and I'm amazed at people who do. There's the bit in the Wily Castle when you have to use item 1 to traverse a large gap, and even more so than with the magnet beam section in Mega Man 1, I think that's really stupid, because it's even harder to get weapon energy there. At least with Mega Man 1, if you had magnet beam and you ran out when you got to that section, there were infinitely respawning capsules of weapon energy you could use to refill the magnet beam. Not so in Mega Man 2 with that item 2 section, or that item 1 section rather. You have to kill this Sniper Joe over and over again, or this enemy that, scrubs along the floor, and hope that they drop weapon energy in the first place, to be able to get it back. And the Wily Castle is full of that as well. There's the turret section where you need crash bombs, all of them, and if you screw up, then you cannot win the boss fight. You can cheese it by destroying the walls, dying, and I think even getting a game over, they stay there. But it's still really jank and was definitely not thought out. I definitely like Mega Man 2 more than I did when I went into making this video, but I don't like it as much as the first one. I think probably it's... I think it too probably belongs in C tier, just below Mega Man 1, if only because it is a little bit more polished, but I think it's got more overall jank moments in it that sort of knock it down a peg compared to Mega Man 1. The music is still super solid, though. Everybody talks about the music, and it is incredibly good. You will not hear me say otherwise. Mega Man 3 now is kind of the second most popular, I find. If people's favorite isn't Mega Man 2, it's usually Mega Man 3, and I can definitely see more where that is coming from. Mega Man 3 is really the first proper evolution, I think, of Mega Man 1 and 2. It's not as jank, the controls are well, the controls were largely improved in Mega Man 2. The Mega Man 1 was a little slippery, Mega Man 2 and 3 are a lot tighter. It's not without its jank. In the Doc Robot stages, which we'll talk about the Doc Robots in a second, you have that Rush Jet segment where if you don't have Rush Jet, good luck. The collapsing platforms in Shadow Man's stage can be a little weird, and the platforming later with those enemies that sway down is a little odd too. But the jank in Mega Man 3 is not as bad as the jank in Mega Man 2, and overall it's not really that big of a deal. Where Mega Man 3 really falters for me is with the inclusion of the Doc Robots. The Doc Robots are completely pointless. They did not need to exist, and they are there to pad out the game. In case you're unfamiliar with the Doc Robots but are watching this video for some reason, the Doc Robots are a set of 8 different Robot Masters that appear after you beat the initial 8 Robot Masters in Mega Man 3 that copy the abilities of the Robot Masters from Mega Man 2. You fight 2 of them in each stage, so you do 4 of the stages over again with some minor differences. The Doc Robots are far and away the worst part of the game. As I recorded this, I don't even remember if I got footage of the Doc Robots, because usually when I play through Mega Man 3, I beat the first 8 Robot Masters, and then I put in a password to skip the Doc Robots and just do the Wily Castle. They're not fun. You're repeating stages you've already done with only very slight differences, really. Fighting bosses from the previous game. You basically have an entire second weakness order to memorize, and I have never memorized the weakness order for the Doc Robots. It is far and away the worst part of the game, but it doesn't truly detract from Mega Man 3 so bad. I go back to Mega Man 3 a lot more than I go back to Mega Man 1 and 2. I think even with the Doc Robots existing, it's still a really, really good game. And I'd put it as our first in B tier, right here. Mega Man 4, I feel like, kind of gets overlooked, although a lot of the second half of the NES games do, I find. People make fun of, Dustman for being Dustman, but there's not really that much talk about Mega Man 4, especially given that it introduced the Charge Shot, which is kind of synonymous with Mega Man at this point. It kind of is really largely a footnote for that. It's basically, it had the Charge Shot in it. But nobody really talks about it very much, and I think that's a shame. I think Mega Man 4 is very, very good. It's not a huge, leaps and bounds improvement above Mega Man 3, like 3 is to 2, I think. It's more fine-tuning, and we've settled properly into what Mega Man is going to be at this point, and it's just adding little bits like the Charge Shot or Eddie to give you power-ups to spice things up a little bit. At this point, it's we're not making huge improvements anymore, but the stages are all really fun with some pretty cool gimmicks. Ringman's stage with the disappearing platforms that go 2 different ways. The light ones will disappear behind you, and the ones that are rings will come from in front of you, if I'm remembering them correctly. Dustman's stage is very annoying, though, especially with the Crusher segment, and the really big reappearing, disappearing blocks gave me a lot of trouble while I was recording this game, if I recall that, because I did record them a little while ago. Plus, we have some really cool boss designs. Skullman alone is great, even if the sunset portion of his stage makes my eyes hurt. I think, like I said, I think Mega Man 4 is not an amazing... It's, like, not a perfect game, obviously. But it gets overlooked a lot, and I feel like that's kind of a shame. It's a lot of fun, and it is one of the ones I go back to a lot. Not quite as much as 3. I'd put it... Yeah, B tier right below 3. Just because there's not as much interesting about it, I guess, comparatively. And you do have some more annoying bits. Brightman's stage can be a pain if you're like me, and even though you've done it several times, you sometimes get an itchy trigger finger and you destroy one of the light bulb firefly things that's keeping things lit. Plus the platforms that sway back and forth near the end of the stage trip me up a lot. You know, I think it's a good game. I think it's a very good game. Mega Man 5, though, is really kind of the redheaded stepchild, almost. It tends to get ignored even more so than probably any other game in the classic series, like mainline. It is probably the least popular out of all of them, and I'm here to say Mega Man 5 is one of my favorite Mega Man games. I friggin' love Mega Man 5. It is very much firmly into more of the same territory at this point, but when the thing that you're getting is good, I'm fine with it being more of the same. I feel like more of the same is tossed around a lot as this is bad, kind of, like there's no huge improvements being made, but I mean, if what I'm getting more of is a good experience, I don't care. And 5 is that. 5 is like a second helping of something good. It may not have, you know, anything super ultra remarkable about it. There's no major, like, innovations to the series. It changed Rush Coil for some reason, and I will give that Rush Coil in Mega Man 5 is very, very annoying. I don't like it. It's not reliable, really, at all. It's a very fun game. Plus, again, it's got some very good robot masters. I quite like Gravity Man, especially his stage. Gyro Man's stage stresses me out with the elevator section, but it's still a lot of fun. The various weapons, even though I really only use them for the boss fights, can be pretty unique, except for Charge Kick. It's a slide move that is more than likely going to damage you as well as whatever you're going to hit. Looking at you fight with Wave Man, it's kind of, like I said, it's more of the same, and it doesn't have the really annoying bits of Mega Man 4 that can sometimes make me go, I'm not going to revisit that one this time. I tend to go back to Mega Man 5 quite a bit. I replay it several times a year, and I would put it definitely right in A tier. Mega Man 6 also tends to get sort of... it gets more attention than 5, but generally, in my experience, a little more on the negative side, just because it's a very easy game. Classic Mega Man has a reputation of being very hard, and they're definitely hard games. I wouldn't say they're like violently difficult or anything, but they're tough, and Mega Man 6 is notably easier than all of them. But honestly, I kind of dig that. Sometimes when I go back to play a Mega Man game, I enjoy the difficulty, but I'm not always willing to deal with one of the harder ones, and so I'll go back to 6 for something that's just a little bit breezier, a little bit more of an easy ride. And it works for that. Again, we're still firmly in more of the same territory without anything really big being added onto it, but you know, it's a good formula by Mega Man 6, and we're back to some overall more interesting robot masters. There are ones that I like in 5, like Gravity Man and Gyro Man, and 4 had Skull Man, who was really cool, but 6, I like basically all of them. They're all really cool. The whole robot masters from all over the world thing, I think, is a really, really good concept to give different types of robot masters, even if some of them are very stereotypical, looking right at you, Tomahawk Man. But they're very cool designs. A lot of the stages are really good. Nightman's stage has the ceiling of spikes. Centaur Man's stage has the gravity-defying water, which is just a cool set piece, if nothing else. Plus, the different Rush variants with the Rush Power and the Rush Jet suit thing are very, very cool. I actually like swapping between them. Usually, once I've got Rush Jet adapter, that's what I'm using most of the game, because the Jet is very fun. Plus, the alternate like pathways through the stages. Mega Man 4 had some of those too for getting extra items, but 6 giving you specifically different exits to find new stuff is, I think, really, really cool. It's a nice shakeup of things. 6 is a really, really good game, and I will not tolerate the slander that it tends to get, or at least the ignorance that it tends to get. I think technically it is probably a better game than 5, but I like 5 more. It's definitely, like, it's entirely a bias thing, but I just prefer 5. But realistically, 6 is probably better, if not they're about equal games. Now we get into the part where I am less enthusiastic with Mega Man 7. I don't really like Mega Man 7 at all. I find a lot of the Robot Masters are pretty forgettable. Like, Freeze Man's kind of cool, pun not intended. Shade Man's neat. And that's kind of about it. The stages are not particularly even very noteworthy outside of Shade Man's for having the Ghosts and Goblins music Easter egg and the 2 different pathways. Spring Man's is really annoying when you're bouncing all over the place. And an overall problem I have with Mega Man 7 is things just don't feel right. The NES Mega Man games are all super tight in their controls, but 7 feels very sluggish. And I don't know if that's just like a mental thing, or if there's actually some difference in the way Mega Man moves, or like in the programming of the game or whatever, but 7 just feels a lot slower and a lot more jank than even Mega Man 1. Very regularly when I am playing 7, I will have issues with getting onto ladders. The detection on those is just strange. When you're on the ground on a ladder, it's fine, but like there's this ladder that you have to jump to in Freeze Man's stage that I always miss at least once. And it's weird. 7 just feels very strange. I don't like the big sprites. Like, it's technically impressive, but something about it, I just don't like the way it looks. 7 is not one of my favorites. I don't like 7. The music is super forgettable too, so it doesn't even really have that to go on for it. Really, the thing I like most about 7 is that it introduced bass, and bass is really cool. But overall, D-tier Mega Man game, no question about that. Mega Man 8 is kind of in the same situation. I don't like Mega Man 8, and it has a lot more unfun bullshit than Mega Man 7 did. You have the snowboarding sections in Frostman stage. I had to remember because I always confuse Freeze Man and Frostman. There's the like weird puzzle solving stuff you have to do in Swordman stage, which is kind of cool, but is honestly just really tedious. There's the boxes gimmick in Clownman stage. It's a game of gimmicks, and I don't really like any of them. And it continues much the same problem Mega Man 7 had of just not feeling right. It feels really sluggish and awkward. And again, unsure if that's just a me mental thing or if there's actually something something different about the programming of the game that does that. But 8 is not a good game. I don't like it at all. It does have a saving grace in its very normy anime cutscenes. I do love those with all my heart. They're so much fun. But they don't save the game, and it's definitely my least favorite E-tier Mega Man game. But now we get into the more fun stuff, the resurgence. It sounded like I said re-resurgence. The resurgence of Mega Man in the late 2000s with Mega Man 9. We get into much better game territory. When I first played Mega Man 9, it was kind of a Mega Man 2 situation. I hated it. I thought it was too hard and it wasn't fun and bleh. But kind of the more I played Mega Man 9 over the years, and really especially when the Mega Man Legacy collections came out, it grew on me. And Mega Man 9 is one of my favorite games in the series. It is really hard, though. Like, it's definitely the hardest one, if you ask me. But that's sort of part of the fun. Mega Man 9 is one of those games I go to when I'm in the mood for a little bit more of a challenge. When Mega Man 6... Where Mega Man 6 is there when I want to just breeze through a game, Mega Man 9 is when I want to challenge myself a little bit. And after even just a couple of playthroughs, it is a little more manageable difficulty. It is still hard, but it's more manageable. The stages are all super fun, even Jewel Man's very tense swinging on those swings, the platforms, when you have to try to not get hit by spikes. That's very tense but very fun. Concrete Man's stage with the different platforms, Tornado Man's stage with the batteries, plus Tornado Man's theme. The music is fantastic. 9 is honestly probably the best standalone soundtrack in a classic Mega Man game, if you ask me. And I know that's probably blasphemy to some Mega Man fans, given Mega Man 2's music is incredible, but 9 just blows it out of the water. Tornado Man's theme, Jewel Man, Galaxy Man's music is so good. Galaxy Man himself is one of my favorite Robot Masters, just design-wise. Plus, and all the other Robot Masters all look really, really cool. We have our first female Robot Master with Splash Woman, who's super cool, even if her stage does wholesale lift a bit from Wave Man in Mega Man 5, which I've always thought was very funny. 9 is I love 9. 9 is a great game. And that's not exactly a unique take, that's not a new opinion, but 9 is definitely S tier. On the other end of the spectrum, Mega Man 10 tends to be ignored a little more often than Mega Man 9. 9 was sort of hailed as the return of Mega Man, but 10 didn't really get that attention. And I think that's a shame, because I think 10 is even better. Although, I fully admit there is definitely a bias here, because 10 was the first Mega Man game I ever played, but I adore 10. It's probably not as technically sound or as tight as Mega Man 9. The music isn't quite as good. Not all of the Robot Masters are very cool. Pump Man is a little bit lame. Everybody likes to joke about Sheep Man. But I have more fun overall with 10 than I have with 9, especially given that as of 10, you could play as Bass. Granted, he was DLC in the original, and in the Legacy collections you have to beat the game to play as him, or input a cheat code, but still. And Bass is my default way. My phone. Bass is my default way to play Mega Man 10. I have played Mega Man 10 as Mega Man once and Proto Man 0 times. I always play as Bass, because Treble's a lot of fun. I like the rapid fire. He can't shoot through walls, but largely that's not too big of a deal outside of, like, Strike Man's stage. Plus, it does have some really cool Robot Masters of its own. Blade Man alone, honestly, is cooler than most of the Robot Masters in, like, Mega Man 4. And definitely than any of the ones in 8. Commando Man's stage is very fun with the sand. I just really, really like 10. Music is solid also. Again, not as good as 9, but Fireball Strike, Strike Man's theme, one of my favorite Mega Man songs of all time. One of my favorite video game songs of all time. 10 is, like I said, technically probably a worse game than 9, but I like it more. So 10 is, as of this moment, my favorite classic Mega Man game, and I don't know if that'll be topped ever. And then we have our most recent Blue Boy, Mega Man 11. I think everybody was kind of blown away when we learned we were getting Mega Man 11 in the first place, and I picked that up day one. I had that in my hands the day it came out, because I was not gonna miss out. And Mega Man 11 very much impressed me. I admittedly started, like, I was cautiously optimistic sometimes. I flip-flopped a little while on whether or not it would be good, but then the demo came out and it was a lot of fun, and by the time I had finished the game and I was seeing the credits, I was very impressed. I like Mega Man 11 quite a bit. Admittedly, it's not quite as solid in my brain, because I've only played it through a couple of times, and the most recent playthrough was when I recorded the footage for these games a little while ago. It's not quite as tight, I think, as the classic Mega Man games. The controls feel a little bit off, but it's not too big of a deal. And I think the difficulty is a little wonky. What it has listed as classic, I feel like, is not the kind of difficulty a classic Mega Man game would go for. I feel like it is much, much harder. It is very much... it's a lot stingier with checkpoints, for one. Classic Mega Man games were pretty... not generous, but very reasonable with checkpoints, whereas Mega Man 11 on Classic is very stingy with them, and that bothered me a lot. I think it's easy or casual or whatever the difficulty mode right below Classic is more akin to a classic Mega Man game's level of difficulty. And on that difficulty, I had a much more pleasant experience, because when I tried playing through on Classic difficulty, I was not having fun. My initial impressions of 11 weren't great. But when I lowered that down to that one extra level of difficulty, it was a lot more fun. All the stages are pretty unique in their own ways. That is what unique means, my brain. Bounce Man's stage can get a little annoying with all the bouncing, but it's not too bad. I like Acid Man's whole design, even if his stage is a little annoying to an extent with all the mini bosses. In general, Mega Man 11 I feel like has too many mini bosses. It really likes them, but they don't hamper the experience too bad. Really, to me, Mega Man 11's biggest issue is with the double gear system. Now, I like the addition of the double gear system in general. I think it's very cool. However, Power Gear is practically worthless. In the couple of playthroughs that I have done, I have rarely, if ever, used Power Gear outside of like the tutorial that explains it to you and the various tutorials that explain how weapons are affected by Power Gear. Speed Gear is far and away much more useful because you can use it to avoid obstacles and projectiles and stuff like that. So I find myself using Speed Gear all the time, Power Gear not so much, and then the double gear thing basically never, because Speed Gear solves all of my needs. If there's one area Mega Man 11's really lacking in, I think, it's the music. The music is not bad, but none of it really grabbed me. I've listened to it on its own a couple of times, and the music is, again, solid. It's well composed. I like hearing it when I'm playing the game, and I like listening to it occasionally when it comes on like a video game radio thing, but it's not a soundtrack I go out of my way to listen to, and it's not a soundtrack that I've really ever considered for use as like background music in videos. So it's good music, but not particularly noteworthy music. But as a whole, Mega Man 11 was a very, very good game. I hope we get a Mega Man 12 soon, and that it can sort of tweak the double gear system to make it a little bit better, but, we'll see. And right now, I think Mega Man 11 goes pretty definitely in B tier, and beats out Mega Man 3 and 4 to be the best of those. So that's where all the classic Mega Man games sit, in my opinion, really. I think, really, outside of 7 and 8, I think they're all good and have their own merits and different, reasons to keep going back to them. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think. Maybe in the future, in fact, probably definitely in the future, we'll talk about some of the other Mega Man series. Lord knows I have plenty of stuff to say about Mega Man X and Mega Man Zero. But for right now, that's where the classic Mega Man games stand to me. Let me know if you agreed, or more than likely on some of these very much disagreed. Just don't be a dick about it. But that is all for now, and I will see you guys next time.